What if history had unfolded in a way that bent the rules of time? Imagine the Viking Age, the 9th century, when longships carved through icy seas, sails like crimson wings against the gray horizon. Now imagine that instead of wolves, bears, or rival clans, the Northmen found themselves standing face to face with creatures from a world 65 million years gone. What if Vikings hunted dinosaurs? Could human cunning, iron, and fire stand against scales, teeth, and raw prehistoric muscle? It's a question that never could have happened, but one worth exploring. To answer it, we need to merge two worlds: the brutal reality of Viking warfare and the unforgiving science of dinosaurs. The Vikings, feared raiders and explorers, carried weapons forged in iron: axes, spears, swords, and bows. They fought with discipline, bravery, and tactics designed to overwhelm. Dinosaurs, on the other hand, were not just predators, but evolutionary titans, honed by millions of years of survival. When we put them together in a hypothetical clash, we reveal more than just who might win. We uncover what makes both Vikings and dinosaurs so unforgettable. Let's begin with the Vikings. These warriors were not giants themselves. The average Viking man stood about 1.70 meters tall, but what they lacked in size, they made up in ferocity and skill. Their weapons were brutally efficient. The Viking axe, with its crescent blade, could crush through wood, bone, and armor alike. Spears, often over 2 meters long, were their most common weapons, able to pierce from a distance or be hurled in volleys. And behind them, the longbow, capable of striking prey or enemies at over 200 meters. But their true weapon wasn't steel, it was teamwork. Shield walls, naval tactics, and unshakable morale made them more than individuals. They were packs of hunters, operating like wolves. Now let's shift to the prehistoric world. If Vikings had hunted in the late Cretaceous, their prey would have included Triceratops, Ankylosaurus, hadrosaurs, and of course Tyrannosaurus rex. Each of these giants posed challenges unlike anything the Northmen had faced. Triceratops was a horned tank, weighing 6 tons, capable of goring through flesh with a single charge. Ankylosaurus was a walking fortress, covered in armor, with a tail club capable of shattering bone. And then there was T-Rex, a predator, larger than any beast in Viking sagas, a walking nightmare with a bite force that could crush through shields as though they were twigs. So what happens if we imagine a hunt? Let's strip away fantasy and think about tactics. Vikings, when hunting large game like moose or bears, used cooperation. They would drive animals into ambushes, surround them, or wear them down with missiles. Against dinosaurs, these same tactics might scale, but only barely. Imagine a herd of hadrosaurs on a windswept plain. Viking longships beached nearby, warriors rush out, shields in hand. They fire volleys of arrows into the herd, trying to push the animals toward marshland or traps. Could they bring one down? Possibly. Dinosaurs, like hadrosaurs, had no natural armor, and dozens of spears and arrows might be enough to cripple one. The victory would be costly, but for the Vikings, glory was worth the cost. But against armored dinosaurs, things change. Picture an Ankylosaurus lumbering slowly across a riverbank. The Vikings surround it, arrows raining from all sides, but arrows bounce off its thick armor. Spears fail to pierce. Then the beast swings its tail club with devastating force, smashing through shields, breaking bones, killing men in a single strike. To defeat it, Vikings would need ingenuity: dig pits, trap it, or use fire. They were cunning, but even cunning has limits when the enemy is built like a tank of flesh and bone. And what about the apex predator Tyrannosaurus rex? Imagine the saga: a massive king of beasts stalking a Viking settlement, roaring with bone-shaking fury. Could Vikings fight back? Alone, no human stood a chance, but together, using formations maybe, they could drive spears into its legs, hurl axes at its face, aim arrows at its eyes. If enough warriors struck in unison, perhaps they could wound it, drive it back, even kill it, but the cost would be staggering. Dozens, maybe hundreds, would fall before the giant collapsed. The fight would echo in sagas forever, but at what price? Science gives us clues. Studies of T-Rex bite force suggest it could deliver over 35,000 newtons of pressure, enough to crush bone and iron alike. Viking shields, usually made of wood reinforced with iron, would splinter instantly. Even a Viking in chainmail would be ripped apart in seconds. No amount of courage could withstand a direct attack. Yet the Vikings were not fools. They fought with strategy, ambush, and surprise. In raids, they struck fast and retreated. Perhaps they would do the same with dinosaurs: hit hard, then vanish into forests or ships, avoiding direct combat. And then there's Spinosaurus. If the Vikings had ventured to North Africa, imagine longships on the Nile, warriors staring as a river monster rises, jaws like a crocodile, claws hooked like spears. Could Vikings kill such a beast? In water, no. Spinosaurus would dominate, dragging men into depths, overturning ships. But on land, with coordination, fire, and numbers, perhaps they could do the impossible. History is full of humans overcoming impossible odds. The Vikings were no different. What's fascinating is not just who would win, but what these hunts say about us. Dinosaurs were nature's perfection of brute survival. Vikings were humanity's perfection of strategy and courage. Dinosaurs relied on evolution, Vikings relied on innovation. Put them together and we see the eternal clash. Raw strength versus human ingenuity. Imagine the sagas that would have been told. Skalds singing of a chieftain who felled a beast taller than any hall. Poems of shield maidens who fought horned monsters with nothing but spear and bravery. Entire villages celebrating feasts of dinosaur meat. Legends carved into runestones, not of dragons, but of creatures more real, more terrifying. The myths of dragons might not have been fantasy at all, but memories of hunts written in the blood of creatures lost to time. Of course, the truth is that Vikings never saw dinosaurs. They fought wolves, bears, and men, not Tyrannosaurus Rex. But by asking, what if, we uncovered deeper truths. Humans have always looked at nature's fiercest creatures and imagined how to conquer them. From mammoths to whales, from lions to crocodiles, we have faced impossible beasts and survived. Dinosaurs were beyond our reach, but in imagination, the battle continues. In the end, the truth is simple. This is a battle that history never allowed. Vikings and dinosaurs ruled in different worlds, separated by millions of years, yet both were masters of survival in their own way. One relied on steel and cunning, the other on scales and evolution. Bringing them together is not about deciding who would win, it's about understanding how both reflect the extremes of life itself. So the question remains, if Vikings had hunted dinosaurs, would human ingenuity prevail against nature's most perfect predators, or would shields and axes shatter before jaws and claws? The sagas remain silent, and the answer lives only in our imagination. If this clash of worlds kept you wondering, then prepare yourself, because the next impossible encounter will push the limits of what history and science thought possible.